Ladies, let me tell you something bold, beautiful, and true. When a man plays with your feelings, he is expecting you to break. But what if instead of breaking, you rise? What if instead of crying, you glow? What if instead of begging for clarity, you give him confusion wrapped in your silence, your elegance, and your evolution? I'm not here to teach you revenge. I'm here to teach you power. The kind of power that doesn't raise its voice. It raises standards. When a man plays with your emotions, he's banking on your reaction. He wants the drama, the texts, the long voice notes at 2 a.m. But confusion, oh, that's a different game. That's silence when he expects a storm. That's posting a picture in your power suit, smiling like you've never been bruised. That's letting him wonder who's giving you that glow now. Confusing him is not about being petty. It's about shifting the narrative. He expected you to fall apart. So when you become untouchable, magnetic, focused, and fierce, he won't know how to handle it. Stop explaining yourself to someone who already made a choice to disrespect your heart. Stop waiting for closure from someone who was careless with your soul. Confuse him with your confidence. Confuse him when you don't chase. Confuse him when you love yourself so loudly that his absence sounds like peace. You don't need to scream, "I've moved on." You let your energy speak for you. You let your ambition speak. Your glow-up is the loudest language you'll ever need, and here's the twist, he might come back. They always do, but when he does, let your silence be your reply. Let your elevation be your answer. You don't need to destroy him to win. You just need to stop giving him the privilege of access. That's the real confusion. That's the real karma, so stand tall, wear your pain like diamonds. Walk into every room like you own it, because guess what? You do. You own your heart, you own your peace, and no man who plays with that should ever be allowed near it again. Confuse him, not with games, but with grace. Not with spite, but with success. Not with revenge, but with reinvention. You are not his toy. You are not his option. You are the main character, always have been. Now let the world, and him, watch what happens when a queen stops playing small. When someone plays with your feelings, their power doesn't come from how clever they are. It comes from how much of your peace you hand over in reaction. That's why silence is one of the most powerful tools you can use. Silence is not weakness, it's not retreat, it's strategy. It's the way you reclaim your control without even lifting a finger. Because when a man expects you to cry, argue, or beg, and instead you give him stillness, he starts to wonder what changed. He starts to question what you're thinking, and that question becomes louder than any words you could have said. You see, when you go silent, you're not giving him satisfaction. You're giving yourself space. You step back not to disappear, but to regain your balance. Your silence becomes the mirror in which he sees the truth of his own actions. There's something haunting about a woman who doesn't react. She becomes unreadable, and that unreadability is exactly what throws him off, because people like that, they feed on emotion, on chaos, on knowing they got to you. When they don't get it, when they can't predict you anymore, they lose the upper hand. Silence is a statement. It's the moment you choose your dignity over drama. It's the moment you decide that explaining yourself is no longer necessary. Because the right people don't play with your emotions, and the wrong people don't deserve your explanations. Every time you hold your peace, you're preserving your energy. You're choosing to invest that energy into something more valuable. Your growth, your healing, your elevation. There is also wisdom in not allowing someone who confused your heart to think they still control your mood. Every unanswered message, every ignored call, every time you choose not to clap back its power. It sends a message without saying a word, a message that says, you don't live in my head anymore. You no longer have space in my emotions. I've moved, and the forwarding address is peace. Eventually, the same man who played with your heart will wonder why he can no longer affect you. He'll look for the fire he once triggered, and all he'll find is cold grace. That's confusion he won't be able to handle, because nothing disrupts a manipulator more than a woman who becomes unavailable. Not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. In that kind of silence, it echoes louder than any scream. When a man plays with your emotions, the first instinct might be to chase after him for answers, for closure, or even for validation. But that's exactly what he expects. He counts on your emotional investment to keep you stuck in a cycle where he controls the narrative. The real confusion begins when you shift your energy away from him and back into yourself. That's when you start to elevate. That's when you stop chasing him and start chasing your purpose. Because the truth is, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to recognize it. It grows stronger the moment you begin to honor it yourself. A woman who stops chasing becomes magnetic. She walks differently. She speaks differently. She no longer begs for attention because she's too busy giving herself the love she once outsourced. She pours that time, energy, and affection into herself, into her career, her goals, her passions, her fitness, her glow. And that elevation speaks louder than any message you could send him. While he expected you to fall apart, you're building an empire brick by brick, silently but steadily. You're investing in your own growth while he's stuck playing games. This shift in focus makes him wonder if he ever truly had you, and that confusion is powerful. When he sees you thriving, not pretending, not faking it, but genuinely glowing from within, he realizes he's no longer the center of your world. You've created a new orbit, one where your needs come first, where your dreams are non-negotiable, and where your peace is sacred. That's what makes him stop and think, not your tears, not your explanations, but your transformation. People who play with your heart are used to being chased. They're used to being the reason for someone else's collapse. But when you decide to rise, you break the cycle, you confuse the pattern, you remind him that your worth was never dependent on his recognition. And when he finally looks back, hoping to find the same woman he thought he could return to, he won't find her. Because she's gone, she evolved, she built herself so high that he can no longer reach her. That's how you truly confuse him, not by becoming bitter, but by becoming better, not by looking back, but by looking ahead. You elevate, you evolve, and most importantly, you stop chasing. And in that stillness, in that strength, lies a version of you he'll never be able to understand again. Confidence is the one thing he never expected you to find without him. It's the energy that speaks before you enter a room, the unshakable knowing in your eyes that you don't need validation to feel worthy. When a man plays with your feelings, he secretly believes that he has power over your self-worth. He thinks your confidence is tied to his approval. But the moment you reclaim that power and wear your confidence like armor, you confuse him in ways he never saw coming. He starts questioning what changed. And what changed is you finally remembered who you are. Confidence doesn't mean pretending you're okay. It means knowing that even if you're healing, you're still whole. It's walking tall even when your heart is bruised, because you know pain doesn't define you. He expected you to shrink, to dim your light, to fade in the background, hoping he'd look back. But instead, you shine brighter. You invest in yourself, your appearance, your voice, your presence. And you stop seeking his gaze to feel seen. You become visible to yourself, and that's where the real power begins. People who manipulate others thrive on control, and control only works when the other person is insecure. When you move with confidence, when you stop second, guessing your worth, he loses his grip. Every time you show up unapologetically, whether it's in how you speak, dress, or live, he realizes you're no longer the woman who once questioned if she was enough. You've become someone entirely different, someone he can't predict, someone who doesn't flinch, someone who is no longer seeking love but embodying it. Confidence changes the dynamic. It tells the world, and him, that you don't chase, you attract. It says you know your value, and if someone doesn't treat you right, they lose access. When you start to believe in yourself on a level so deep that no one's rejection can shake it, you become untouchable. That's what truly confuses him, not a new man in your life, not a cryptic post online, but the fact that you're thriving without him, that you no longer need closure because you close the door yourself, with confidence, not bitterness. He may have played with your heart, but he didn't break your spirit. And when he sees you full of life, glowing with certainty, and walking in your power, he'll wonder how you became so unstoppable. That's the beauty of confidence. It doesn't just protect you, it confuses everyone who thought they could break you. One of the most powerful things you can do after someone plays with your emotions is to take back your access. Stop giving your time, your attention, your thoughts, and your energy to someone who treated your heart like it was disposable. The moment you stop reaching out, stop replying, stop watching their stories, or checking if they noticed your silence, you begin to confuse them. Because someone who played with you never imagined you'd be strong enough to cut the cord. He believed you'd always be available, always one emotional trigger away from coming back. But when you don't, when you disappear emotionally and mentally, he starts to feel the void that he once assumed you'd never leave. Access is a privilege, not a right. And when you give someone access to your life, your softness, your vulnerability, you are trusting them with a sacred part of you. Once they show they can't handle it, the strongest move you can make is to shut the door. Not in anger, but in clarity. You don't have to block them out of bitterness. You just choose to stop letting them sit front row in a story they no longer deserve to witness. That kind of emotional distance is confusing because it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's asterisk quiet and final asterisk. There's power in no longer answering texts that come too late. There's power in not picking up when they suddenly remember your worth. You begin to protect your peace like a queen guards her crown, and here's what happens. He starts to notice. He starts to feel the absence of your warmth, your check-ins, your availability. The silence becomes louder than any words you used to speak. He reaches and there's nothing there, no reaction, no access, no more entry into your emotional world. He may test the waters. He might try to pull you back with charm, nostalgia, or apologies. But the woman you are now doesn't respond to empty words. She knows that access without respect is self-betrayal. So you stay quiet, graceful, and unavailable, not to punish, but to protect. Because love doesn't mean letting someone come and go as they please. Love means knowing when to close the door and lock it behind you. That confusion he feels, that growing sense of disconnection isn't cruelty. It's the result of your healing. It's the echo of boundaries being built. And the man who once played with your heart will one day realize that losing access to you wasn't just a loss. It was a consequence. Reinvention is the most powerful answer you can give to someone who thought breaking your heart would break your spirit. When a man plays with your feelings, he expects to leave you stuck. Stuck in the same place emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But when you decide to rise from the pain and become someone stronger, wiser, and more self-assured, that transformation becomes your quiet form of revenge. And the beauty of reinvention is that it's not about proving anything to him. It's about discovering everything within you that he failed to see. Reinvention isn't a performance. It's not about showing off or pretending to be fine. It's about doing the inner work. It's looking at the version of you that tolerated confusion, that accepted breadcrumbs, that waited for clarity, and deciding you don't want to be her anymore. You grow out of the need for his attention. You evolve past the games, you stop obsessing over the why and start focusing on the what now. And that shift changes everything. Suddenly, your days are filled with purpose. Your mind isn't clouded by overthinking or waiting for a message. You're too busy becoming the woman who deserves more than the way he treated you. As you begin to change, your energy changes. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with more confidence. You dream bigger. You're not the same person who would drop everything just to respond to his inconsistency. You're building something solid, whether that's a career, a passion, your health, or your peace, and he starts to feel it. He sees it when you don't engage. He hears about it through others. He feels it in your silence, and nothing confuses a man more than realizing the woman he once took for granted is now completely out of reach. He may try to come back thinking he can resume where he left off, but reinvention means there is no old version of you left to return to. You don't fit into the mold he once knew. You've grown beyond it. The things that once attracted you to him now feel small. Your taste in love, in life, in energy has matured, and that change is permanent. That's the quiet shock to his system. He didn't just lose your attention. He lost the version of you that once needed his validation. This is the kind of reinvention that doesn't scream. It just moves forward, and in that forward motion you become untouchable, not because you're heartless, but because you finally chose yourself, and that's a choice you'll never regret. When someone plays with your feelings, one of the deepest wounds they leave behind is the lie that you weren't enough. But the moment you stop letting that person define your worth, everything shifts. You begin to see yourself through your own eyes, not through the distorted lens of someone who couldn't appreciate your heart. And that is when the real healing starts. Because the truth is, your value has never been dependent on anyone's recognition. It's been within you the whole time, quietly waiting for you to believe in it again. People who toy with your emotions thrive on control. They want to keep you questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong, what you lacked, what you could have changed to keep them. But that's the trick. It was never about you. It was about their own immaturity, their inability to love with integrity, their fear of real connection. And the more you internalize their behavior, the more disconnected you become from your true self. But once you recognize that their actions are a reflection of them not you, the fog starts to lift. You don't need closure from someone who was careless with your soul. You don't need explanations from someone who couldn't even offer you honesty. What you need is to remind yourself that you are enough. Right now, as you are not too much, you are not too emotional, you are not too intense, you are a force, you are depth. And the right person will never make you feel like you have to shrink yourself to be loved. The moment you stop measuring your worth by the way he treated you is the moment you step into your power. You start making decisions that reflect how much you value yourself. You stop begging for attention, for answers, for affection. You become your own home, and in doing so, you teach the world how to treat you. You show them that you are not an option, not a backup plan, not something to figure out later. You are the main event. The moment someone walks away from that and you still stand tall, radiant and resilient, that's when they realize they lost something rare. Never again let someone's inability to love you fully convince you that you're unlovable. You are more than enough, and once you stop letting anyone define your worth, you become impossible to confuse, impossible to manipulate, and completely unforgettable. That's not just healing, that's power.